Okay, it's 9 a.m. We can begin. First of all, thank you everybody for attending my presentation. Today I want to give you some hints about Spring Framework's annotation witchcraft. Why I called it witchcraft? It's just a playful word for all the technicalities we don't want to learn, we want to avoid for some reason. This presentation will be full of meaty parts, full of code, and sprinkled by memes. So I hope you had a good breakfast, but also you are well rested to digest all the content I have prepared for you. Okay, so let us begin. We've got a wizard here. Let's start. It's Thursday, 9 a.m. Every good programmer has already been in the office, perhaps had a daily already, and is ready to implement some business logic. First of all, please tell me, how many of you have ever used Spring Boot, Spring Framework in general? Quite a lot. Okay, so we will be on the same page. So let's say we've got a service written in Spring Boot, and now we've got to do some implementation. We've got the solution groomed, everything is in place. Now all we have to do is to write the code. So what are we going to do? We are going to write some components, some algorithms perhaps, but let's focus on the components first. So what are we going to do? Create a class annotated with configuration and register beans, controllers, perhaps use some transactional operations on a database. Another component, perhaps we need to use a cache, right? These all are some annotations that allow us to do implement some functionality without actually writing any code, right? All we have to do is to inject this little magic word, let's call it, or rune, and magically Spring knows what to do with it. Register a bean, perform a transaction, perhaps cache some entity, create an index, maybe, or perform a retriable operation, or override. Wait, what? Nah. Okay. All these annotations have one purpose, in context of Spring, of course, because let's first explain what is an annotation in general. Annotation is basically some metadata we apply on a class, and without additional processors, perhaps compilers, it doesn't mean anything, right? We put some, it's like a comment in the code, but if we apply additional tools, this comment with additional, let's say, information like, I don't know, let's have an example with a bean annotation. It becomes registered in the Spring context, right? So how does it work that the Spring is able to recognize those annotations and is capable of applying additional capabilities to our components? This will be the topic of our presentation. So, who of you recognizes this man? I see we don't have many Tekken players. Well, I've been introduced to Tekken recently by my friend that was kicking my butt severely without even looking at the controller. But anyway, why I am showing this to you? Because imagine this component, and we apply annotations on it. Some people believe that hiding some functionality behind annotations is not the right thing to do. It's actually bad. In case of any problems, you are unable to debug it directly. You are unable to locate what the actual problem is. You have to look into some pieces of code that are completely unrelated with with the flow you have been implementing. Perhaps you will find a bug in some third-party implementation, and you have an actual problem, right? So for the people that want full control over their code, annotations and functionality based on annotations is actually a bad idea. So this is devil gin. But from some people, it's actually a very convenient thing to use, right? We have POCs. We don't want to waste time to implement logic of applying transactions in the database or performing retries. We've got this out of the box. All the things we have to do is to apply the proper annotation on a piece of code, like a method, on a class, whatever, and it works magically. Well, perhaps we are expecting that sometimes it might break, but for example, for POC purposes or for minimum viable products, this is just perfect, right? So for those people who are mostly experimenting or perhaps like living on the edge and are not afraid to fail, this could be a blessing in disguise. But I am not going to advocate for any of those sides. I came here to explain how those mechanisms work, actually. And that's what I'm going to explain. Yeah, this is Jin Kazama from Tekken series. Now, let's play a little bit. Who wants to be a millionaire? What tools does Spring Framework use to expand component capabilities? And we've got 4 answers. Generative AI, dynamic proxies and code generation, inversion of control, or perhaps none of those. Who believes the answer is A? Please raise your hand. I cannot see clearly by the light, perhaps. No? No, doesn't help. Okay. Who believes the correct answer is B? Please raise your hand. Okay. Who would like to call a friend? Okay. Do you want my number or something? No, I'm joking. Who believes the correct answer is C, inversion of control? No one. And the last answer, who advocates for that? Okay. The correct answer is B in this case. So dynamic proxies. I know some of this. So perhaps let's craft first spell. Why spells? Because we are talking about witchcraft. So I believe it will be a proper match for our use cases. Who of you have ever watched or heard about Harry Potter franchise? I know this is a silly question to ask, but I want to engage you in conversation somehow. Yeah, I've seen five hands raised. Great. So there is a spell called Expelliarmus. Its purpose is to disarm your opponent. And in our code, I've prepared this spell in the form of annotation. So we've got this. Wait a second. We've got this Expelliarmus spell. In our JVM world, it will be used to disarm a function from throwing an exception. So in case we want our function is unable to complete the execution and wants to throw an exception, we can use this annotation to tell it, no. No exceptions here. I want a null, for example. I know we usually do the opposite, but this is just for showcase. And I've prepared a simple test. Expelliarmus spell test, to be precise. And we've got a component named greeter. This greeter is a simple component that is supposed to greet someone, right? Maybe throw an exception, for example. And this test is very simple. I'm not going to explain it in details. Should greet on short names. Here we have should return null on a long name. And why is that? we've got a short greeter implementation here that has this spell Expelliarmus applied. Is it visible? I hope it is. I'm not fond of light mode, so I've got problems with navigation, but I hope you forgive me. Yeah, and you can see if the name is less than 5 characters or equal to 5 characters, then we've got proper greeting. In other case, we've got exception thrown. But you can see this exception is exactly here registered in the Expelliarmus spell, so we don't want an exception, we are getting null in principle. For this one, I'm not going to explain it at the moment, just in a second. And here we've got a static configuration for our Spring test. It simply registers our bean and also imports additional configuration. What I am doing here, I've created a proxy postprocessor because, as I've mentioned, annotations do not work by themselves. This is just a set of informations. But if we apply additional component, the postprocessor in Spring World, bean postprocessor to be precise, we can enchant our runes and use them to create our code. And here, this is JDK proxy related stuff. So we don't want to wrap another proxy into our proxy, so we filter this out. Also, the JDK proxy requires some component to have an interface implemented. So we verify this. And here we've got an invocation handler, so our operator that actually applies the magic. So let's take a look at it. We've got our Expelliarmus proxy, we've got our target and invocation. So what do we do? We normally invoke the method. Oh, sorry, this was not supposed to be visible. And in case of exception, we've got our exception wrapped in invocation target exception, so we unwrap it. And we are looking for the disarmed exceptions, because Expelliarmus is for disarming, and see if any of them, any registered, matches the one thrown, and if yes, we return null. In other case, we rethrow the exception further. And here, we are reading the exceptions from the annotation itself, right? It's not so easy, but also not very complex. After thoughtful reading, you can get the gist what is going on here. So yeah, now let's run our tests. Oh, one test is failing. And what test is failing? Okay, short name is working. That's expected, but this long name one doesn't work. Exception is thrown. Something is wrong. Let's see. I've got the correct exception registered. Yeah. So what is wrong? I'm going to spare you from the lengthy explanation, but there is a trick when you try to work with the invocation handlers. You need to be aware that the method you are invoking here, this method signature, because this is the reflection object, this is the description of our method. This method is taken directly from the interface, not the implementation, not the component we are proxying. So our greeter has nothing, right? That's why it's not registered. So let me quickly fix this. I've got a proper command for this. Yeah, magic. I've changed the disarmed exceptions method a bit. This time I am using the target class directly and try to find the method on the component. In the component, I am going to wrap into proxy. And this content is exactly the same. Now, if we try to run our tests, you see everything is working right now. Right? So long name is no longer throwing an exception, but is giving us null. So we've successfully applied a bit of magic, have hidden a bit of logic in the annotation. And now we can spam this spell, cast it everywhere we want. And perhaps we will break our code base because it will become unreadable, or perhaps it will be just fine. Okay, the last thing I wanted to show you is this test should throw exception anyway for stubborn one. Sorry, the stubborn greeter has no interface implemented. That means we cannot build a JDK proxy, dynamic proxy for this component. That's why this annotation will not work. And this is exactly what the believers of Devil Gene warn us about. We may use annotation. We may specify everything correctly. We may have double-checked if exceptions match, everything is OK, and our tests may pass, right? But this code might not work because it is hidden, right? It can happen that our tests do not cover some functionality that should behave differently in case of this annotation because of skill issue, human error, or whatever. And we don't see it because this proxying, this witchcraft is hidden and not in the plain sight. And that's what means to delegate some of control into annotations, perhaps third-party code, right? So that's the problem. Okay. Let's get back to our presentation. And let us quickly resume what we have here. We've got some proxy postprocessor, right? Our proxy that simply is being configured here and implements the invocation handler. It's not so complex, right? But I thought this is not the proper way to go. You may take screenshots, but I also have a link to this to the presentation where all those diagrams are present. So feel free to do photos, but you don't have to. Yeah, I thought there has to be some simpler or more robust way, because here this is this very simple case, right? Simple. What if I want to build a CG lib proxy, the class proxy? I cannot do this, right? Because I only limited myself to dynamic proxies. So when I have a component that doesn't have the interface, I'm not able to proxy it. And Spring does it. How does it do? What magic is applied that is capable of doing it? So I thought, we need to go deeper. We need to investigate more. Perhaps we need to look for an inspiration. And I've selected annotation transactional to inspire me. And this diagram is the relation of all configuration classes I thought relevant in the subject of this presentation that Spring might use in order to actually apply transactional operations or invoke operations in transactional scope for our components. And do not try to read this, please. I only wanted to show you that our transactional annotation is the little spot right there. And all the magic here is related to Spring configuration. And this was my literal expression when I built this, right? And I thought, no, I messed something up. This is too complex. I believe I missed something, or perhaps I've linked something improperly. So, yeah, I decided to break it down into pieces because we shouldn't give up, right? When we've got a goal, we need to try to fulfill it. When we need to give our best. So, let us take a look at the configuration code, right? So, when we apply a transactional annotation on a component, the Spring tells us you need to enable transactional management. You need to give this annotation also in the configuration, so Spring knows, okay, you want to use transactions. Of course, we are going to omit all the transaction managers that are related to our data source, etc., etc. We know it's there when we configure our SQL database or whatever. we got these connections. We know how it works in general, right? But let's focus on the enable transaction management here. We've got some modes. We've got some options to proxy target classes. What is it, right? This is an annotation. Spring has a mechanism that allows it to determine how should the proxy be applied for its components, right? We've got a transaction management configuration selector here, a very short name, that tells us, okay, I can build you a proxy, but please explain how would you like this proxy to be built. Do you want dynamic proxies? Do you want CGLib proxies? Do you want defaults? Or perhaps do you want to use Aspect JWeaver in general? Up to you. I'm ready for whenever you throw at me. And in the sake of this presentation, I'm not going to touch Aspect J proxies at all because we don't have enough time to cover it. I will only focus on dynamic proxies and class proxies, right? And when I was verifying this, I've seen something like auto proxy registrar, and that gave me a hint. Wait. What is that actually? Let's see. This auto proxy registrar is imported, not explicitly, but implicitly is imported by this enable transactional management, and it prepares us a component called APC. This is auto proxy configurator, and it initially configures infrastructure advisor auto proxy creator. Please do not try to remember those names. It's not worth it. Only remember that. Try to remember at least that we have some proxy creators, right? Proxy registry that supplies us proxy creators, and this proxy creator is able to look up components called advisors. What are advisors? I will explain in a moment. But there's still more. As I've mentioned, our auto proxy creator, apart from infrastructure one, we have also default if we want to use it, uses a proxy factory. We've got a whole hierarchy of this proxy creators because we've got some generic methods that could be reused. So believe me, I skipped a lot of interfaces that are not relevant here. So this is just the juice we want to focus on, and we only care about creating proxy. We've got the type of proxy, name of proxy, what interceptors, another word, keyword, interceptors, what is that? And we've got a proxy factory here. And also, bean postprocessor, smart instantiation aware bean postprocessor to be exact. So the same thing, almost the same thing I've used to create a dynamic JDK proxy. And yeah, what do we have here? Our proxy factory is able to build a proxy based on the interfaces we supply and also some advices. So first we had advisor, now we have advices. What else? In a moment. And this proxy factory is capable of creating either JDK dynamic AOP proxies or CGLib, so class-based proxies. Okay, let's try to somehow aggregate it in our heads, right? So we've got some annotation that provides us configuration of auto proxy registry, and then this proxy registry uses some configuration to create an auto proxy creator. This auto proxy creator uses some advisors. This might work, but I need to get some knowledge. What are those advisors? What I have some idea what could the interceptor be, but I want to be sure, right? So let's go through the basis of Spring AOP. So aspect-oriented programming. because this mechanism I'm talking about is heavily relying on those. So first of all, let's explain helper phrase, join point. A join point is a stage of execution either in component or our whole application, right? Mostly we refer to this as a method invocation. Most proxies rely on method invocations as a join points. Now the point cut. When we have selected this join point, we need to somehow describe it, right? So we need to tell Spring, okay, I want additional capabilities to be executed, to be applied on every component that, for example, has annotation XYZ, or every component which has a public method that has annotation XYZ. So this is our description, right? The point cut is a description of a join point. Now, advice. This is our modular functionality, the small piece of functionality that should be applied by the proxy. So for the sake of brevity, we should try and limit the functionality of each advice to have single responsibility, right? So if you want to do a retry, do only retry. Catch the exception, check the context if you should do retry according to some policy, and decide what to do next. Either fallback, either retry, or either, for example, throw exception. We can stack advices, so there is no point in creating a monstrous advice that performs a lot of stuff. And now, advisor. So these last two we have been able to see in the diagrams. The advisor combines both point cut, so description of where the advice should be applied, with the advice. And now, this is our policy, this is our strategy, how to enhance our components. And as I've mentioned, Spring does its magic either via dynamic proxies, class proxies, or aspect weaving. Now, let's get back to the code. Okay. I've created another spell because a proper wizard should have more spells in the arsenal. The one called Engorgio, also taken directly from Harry Potter franchise. And this spell is supposed to enlarge text, right? Transform it from the lowercase to uppercase and yeah, enlarge it simply. And how does it work? Let's see first the test setup. So here we've got some greeter. Okay. Let me start with the configuration first to better explain the tests. So first we've got the configuration that imports some enchanting configuration and the spell configuration for Engorgio. And we've got two components. The greeter, called mega greeter because we want to enlarge things. I'm not good at naming, so deal with it. And salary provider. This one will be explained a little bit further in the test. So our mega greeter is a standard greeter that is supposed to return some greeting, but has this annotation applied. And this annotation has no other functionality. It's just a marker, but this marker becomes magic when we apply this configuration. So we've got our spell configuration, and here you can see I am using a point cut advisor. So referring to this AOP nomenclature, this is the advisor that directly uses point cuts. Our Spring framework gives us a convenient way to register this, an annotation matching point cut. So I can tell, OK, please look up for the annotation On the classes, you don't have to seek anything. On the methods, look for Engorgio and see in the inherited instances, right? So in case of subclassing, it's going to check the superclasses as well. And here we've got our interceptor, our advice, and we simply combine it into an advisor, right? Nothing else. Looks simple. But first of all, we need to verify what this advice, this interceptor is. This is the method interceptor taken directly from AOP Alliance. And it has a simple method, not like in the dynamic proxies when you have all methods, everything directly in the method signature. You have only method invocation here, and you can simply proceed with it as you wish to. So our implementation is very simple. We tell the interceptor, the invocation, to proceed. Right? We don't want to mess with the code. And if it happens that our result is a string, then transform it to the uppercase. If not, throw an exception. Now, question. Is it a proper way to apply a proxy? I'm not talking about the code. I'm talking about a common sense, business logic. Is it feasible that I am applying a functionality that can throw me an exception and I am not able to verify it? I can apply this annotation on anything, and I will get an exception because it's only supposed to support strings. Who believes it's an okay thing to do? Nobody. Who believes this is smelly, this is wrong? Yeah, I believe so too. But this is just a matter of presentation, so I will be forgiven for that, I hope. And if not, well, happens. Okay, so let's get back to our tests. Almost. One more thing. Our enchanting configuration, because it was also present. There's only enchanter here. Very simple concept. I am registering our auto proxy creator, just like that. Nothing else works. Or is it? I don't know. Let's see. Let us run the test. All the tests have passed. Okay, so let us analyze it shortly. We've got mega greeting here. So we've given name and given method. We see that the expected response greeting is in upper cases. Also, we've got two additional methods that verify us what type of proxy have Spring built for us. But I will explain it in a second. So now, let me get back to the salary provider. We've got an additional component that is not related to greeting anyhow, and has no implementation in terms of interfaces. And it returns a big decimal with next month payout because, and okay, let's try to use an Engorgio because it enlarges things. Perhaps it could enlarge our payout as well, right? What was the worst that could happen? And we've got our test here that says it should throw an exception for not supported return type. So our next month payout will simply throw an exception that says this method needs to return string. Can't help you. So yeah. And the last two things. We've got our greeter and the salary provider. Spring, according to the configuration we apply to it, is capable of creating multiple types of proxies. So according to the rules, the dynamic proxy, JDK proxy, is used by default, unless you change the configuration. And if the bean, our component, is eligible for that kind of proxy, so it has an interface, etc., it will create this type of proxy. And you can see our greeter is a JDK dynamic proxy. our salary provider has no interfaces and could not be proxied dynamically. So Spring is using CGLib library to instrument the code directly. So create a enhanced subclass that is applied in place. And we have also a proof here that it works. Of course, if we want to play it a little bit, we could say that we don't want to use, for example, dynamic proxies. We only want CGLib to be applied. And this is also OK. So we've now seen how the auto-proxy creator works, right? So we created this default auto-proxy creator. We've created our point cut advisor with proper advice and proper description where it should be applied, and it works. Is it simpler than the code related to our first solution? I would say yes. It's but it has a you need to know those components, right? So you need to do some research before you can actually use it. You need to know about such solutions, right? So you need to spend some time learning about this to be able to properly use it in proper context. Okay, I've got one more spell for you. Okay. Because we had this auto-proxy register as well, so we didn't have to create this auto-proxy creator ourselves and remember about all of this. In case of transactional, it was only simple annotation. Enable me something, right? I want to do that too. Why not? And in this case, let's first see. I've created another spell. This one is well, crafted by myself, not taken from Harry Potter franchise, Logus Timingus. So it's a funny name for simply logging the method execution time. And here we've got some configuration even. So it is customizable. What is the level we want to apply our logging? I will replace it just for fun. Yeah, like this is fun, right? And as usual, let us first take a look at the tests. So our test configuration is a little bit simpler this time. We've got only one greeter that is supposed to simply greet our friend and has annotation Logus Timingus. And we've got a simple test. It should simply greet and log. So we do the greeting, we get the proper answer, and also we are checking the logging appender to see if we've got a proper logging logging entry, right? The logging message. Execution of method greet with arguments, etc., etc. So let's see if this works. It would be funny if it didn't. Unfortunately, it does. Okay, what do we have here then? Let us take a look at the configuration. So first of all, the spell configuration itself is almost the same as in terms of spell and Gorgio. So I'm creating a point cut advisor. The only difference here is the role of the bean I'm building. It's infrastructure. Why? Because the default auto-proxy registrar that is applied by Spring is an infrastructure auto-proxy registrar. And it has a capability only to detect the infrastructure beans. But not a very big inconvenience here. So we've got our point cut, match only the methods with proper annotation. We've got our interceptor. And what does the interceptor do? Our interceptor simply starts the timer, executes the method, and ignoring the result, it simply stops the timer and logs the information, what method, with which arguments, and how long did it take. to work, right? And here we've got some additional methods to determine the target logger, right? Because we can have synthetic classes, etc., that that the logger cannot be applied to. And here we've got the logging level extractor. So in case we don't have it specified in the annotation, we will use info level by default. Okay. So we had run our tests. I will perhaps do it again because I forgot how to switch the runtime window, and this way it will show it by itself. Right. And as you can see, we've got our warning, and our greeter is properly locked. Right. It took some parts of milliseconds to execute. Okay. One thing is left to explain. We've got our configuration, our spell, everything is in place, but now how did that auto-proxy creator came to life? I've created additional annotation called enable spellcasting that has exactly the same properties. Oh, well, maybe not exactly, but has the same part of properties as this enable transactional management. It needs to have the mode, the advice mode, to control what kind of proxies do you want to build. So if we want to use proxy, or we want to use aspect J weaving. So and also it has a switch to control if we want dynamic proxies or CGLib proxies. And this switch is just a preference, because if Spring detects that it cannot apply the dynamic proxies, it simply doesn't. It simply falls back to class proxies. And this is just taken as a preference, right? And also here we've got this importing auto proxy registrar. So the stuff I've been talking about, if anyone is curious, interested, you can look at the code by yourself. Okay. And now to give you a hint, here, this method should become CGLib proxy. If we switch the configuration like this, so I don't want to use proxy target classes, I want to use JDK proxies. Then I have to change this line, and you can see that I will get dynamic proxies as well, like that. So full control. Okay, I will roll back the changes. And also the last showcase. We can do combo spells, because every good wizard should be able to cast more than one spell at a time, right? So the last test that is also using enable spellcasting, so our auto proxy registrar, and now imports both Engorgio and Logos Timingus spells and applies them both on the same greeting, right? So we have a combo performing. Let's run the test. The test passes. As you can see, the returned greetings are all in uppercases, like that. And also we've got our logging message. So both spells, both advices have been applied to the same component, and we can stack them accordingly. As for the order of the execution, it all depends on the order of the devices, right? Spring allows you to order to imply ordering which advice has a higher priority and should be applied first, right? Okay. I believe this is all I wanted to explain. Now let's get to the questions and answers. Perhaps I will quickly open Slido. Do we have any questions? Room 10, right? Yeah, here. Will you make presented code available online? Yes. just to show you, it should be ready. Where is it? Ah, there it is. The same code is here. So it's. I will show you a link of the QR code you can scan for yourself. Okay. Does the order of annotations have any effect on the order of execution of the configuring code? I believe no. Annotations are just meta informations, and the configuration postprocessor is responsible for detecting them, selecting proper advisors, and applying them. And those advisors are applied based on the ordering they could have defined. So if you provide annotation ordered or priority ordered, or provide, sorry, this is interface, or the annotation order, then that's the thing that counts. So the thing with the advice with higher order is executed first. You can think of it as a sort of onion, right? So the layers are built, and the first advice to start will be the last to finish executing the code, right? If that makes sense. Okay, I see no further questions. If you have okay, another. Is it possible to debug the annotation? But like what? Like that? I don't think so. This is just a meta information. If you want to debug something, then you have to debug a proper interceptor. So let's see, like that. Or perhaps here. To be honest, I haven't checked that really, but in principle it should work. Yeah. So we are here in our interceptor, and we can see what is going on properly, right? We've got all the context. All right. So if you have any further questions, then you feel free to reach out to me in person or online. I've got 2 more slides for you. So once again, thank you very much for attending my presentation. This is the QR code I've been talking about. So feel free to scan it. And also, as a postscriptum, why so many memes? This is a sentence that reaches my soul, that the memes are the DNAs of the soul. And anybody recognizes from which piece of software, which game this sentence is taken? Please raise your hand. 3 people. Yeah, you are the man of culture. I applaud you. Thank you very much.